Number 9. Lauren Scruggs. On December the 3rd of 2011, Lauren Scruggs took to the skies above McKinney, Texas, in a single-engine plane piloted by her friend. They'd planned to see the Christmas lights from the air. As she steps off the aircraft in the dark, Scruggs walked towards the front of the wing and was struck by its still spinning propeller. The blade struck her in the head and sliced off her left hand, causing her to collapse in a pool of blood. The 22-year-old also suffered a brain injury, and her left eye subsequently had to be removed. Doctors were initially unsure she was going to survive, but she made a remarkable recovery, eventually being fitted with a prosthetic eye and hand. Within a year, she returned to work as the editor of the fashion publication Lolo magazine. She released 2 books, with the first detailing how the accident had impacted her life. The link to both books is available in the description below. Scruggs was unsure the extent to which her injuries would affect her relationships, but in 2014 she married entertainment journalist Jason Kennedy. Number 8. Jorge Castellanos. On December the 5th of 2020, a Mexican businessman was killed after being struck by the rapidly rotating blades of a helicopter. 52-year-old Jorge Castellanos was at Rancho El Galito in the municipality of Singhualucan. Castellanos, an aviation enthusiast and the president of a local tequila company, was among a group that had been watching the approach of a small red helicopter. The aircraft landed and its blades were still spinning when Castellanos started walking towards it. A video which subsequently became viral on social media captured the exact moment that he was struck in the head by the propeller. The blow caused him to instantly drop to the ground. He was airlifted to the General Hospital of Tulancingo, where doctors struggled to save his life. Unfortunately, his wound was too large and brain matter was exposed. Castellanos went into cardiac arrest several times before ultimately succumbing to his injuries. Number 7. Danny Round. 2 months into a dream trip at sea with his friends, New Zealand man Danny Round narrowly avoided death after a storm threw him from his boat. An experienced sailor, the 32-year-old had left his companions to explore Fiji on a powered dinghy. He ventured towards one of the most remote islands in the South Pacific. As he returned to his 1984 sailboat, he was caught in strong winds. The boat's bow started to lift off the water and then came down hard. Round was catapulted off it and, in the process, lost his grip on the kill cord. The dinghy went over his body and up to his head, carving into his flesh with its propeller. He suffered lacerations to his feet, waist, hands, and chest, but his face was the worst affected. Round was left with several displaced teeth, a broken jaw, and 3 skull fractures. Looking back on the incident, he remembered that the adrenaline had kept him going and prevented him from passing out from the pain and drowning. Another sailor spotted his boat spinning out of control and went to investigate, only to find Round still in the water with blood floating around him. Round survived and received at least 150 stitches. He was airlifted to a hospital in a rescue operation that also involved help from the Navy. Metal plates were inserted into his face and cartilage from his ear was transferred in an attempt to fix his nose. Even though the extensive cuts he'd suffered on his face had left him scarred for life, Round returned to the sea shortly after the accident. Number 6. Danielle CREASE. In September of 2013, before she was planning to leave for Taiwan on a teaching job, Miami woman Danielle CREASE was on a weekend boating trip with her friends. As she jumped in the water, CREASE was struck by a passing boat and its propeller mutilated her leg. Her Achilles tendon was ripped off and her sciatic nerve was severed. CREASE remembered being thrown around like being in a washing machine as blood started pooling around her. The personal trainer was taken to the hospital where her father was told that she wasn't going to make it. CREASE had been fighting the intubation and had to be restrained. She required a wound vacuum, often used on shrapnel injuries because her wounds were too deep to heal naturally. CREASE was left paralyzed in her left leg from the knee down. However, when she was first brought into hospital, surgeons had collected samples of her sciatic nerve. Staff at the Miller School of Medicine and Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami opted to regrow the nerve in a lab. Once the revolutionary procedure was approved, they grafted it with sural nerves from both her legs. They were certain that if she kept trying to flex her muscles, the movement would eventually return. In 2015, their suspicions came to fruition as CREASE started to slightly move her foot, emboldened by the first sign of improvement. She worked tirelessly in the gym to get more. While not fully restored, CREASE was eventually able to do most of the activities she'd enjoyed prior to the accident. Number 5. Simon HOULDER. In 2020, a man from East Yorkshire, England, succumbed to massive blood loss following a prank which had gone horribly wrong. Simon Houlder was celebrating his 30th birthday on the vessel along with 6 of his closest friends. After having a few drinks, the men started joking around and pushing each other in the water. 2 of them were brought back aboard the boat without incident. However, after Houlder was pushed in the water, he already started swimming towards the vessel as it was reversing. Friend Frederick Collins saw what was happening and that an accident was imminent. He shouted at Houlder to climb from the side, while also telling the driver to stop reversing. Unfortunately, his pleas went unheard, drowned out by the engine's noise. Collins remembered seeing dread etched on Houlder's face as he came within 3 feet of the boat and realized it wasn't stopping. He disappeared underwater and then resurfaced on the side after the propeller had ravaged his body. 3 of his friends jumped in to save him. Houlder was airlifted to Addenbrooke Hospital in Cambridge, where he later passed away from the cuts he sustained on his leg, which had caused massive hemorrhaging. Number 4. Chris Wright. In July of 2007, pilot Chris Wright was struck in the head by the wooden propeller of his short biplane, nearly 2 years after he'd been involved in a plane crash that almost cost him his life. Shortly before 12 p.m., 39-year-old Wright was hand-turning the propeller at the Pryor Field Regional Airport in Limestone County, Alabama. He leaned in to grab it for a second turn when the propeller fired. Wright lost his balance and fell headfirst into its rotation. It struck him twice before the engine stopped. The blows had breached his skull, inflicting a 9-inch gash in the back of his head. He was airlifted to a hospital, where he was pronounced as being in stable condition after receiving roughly 52 stitches. It was a better prognosis than the one following the August 2005 crash. At the time, Wright rode as a passenger, and the aircraft went down near Trinity. Its pilot was killed in the crash. Wright spent nearly 2 months recovering in the hospital, and several months after that, he had to relearn how to walk and talk. Number 3. KRISTINA DEJESUS. In October of 2017, New Jersey nurse KRISTINA DEJESUS was on a trip to Texas with some of her childhood friends. The group took a boat out on Austin's Lake Travis. As they were in the water, DeJesus's arm was severed by the boat's propeller from the shoulder, so swiftly that she didn't even feel it. The group began to panic and the current started pulling them away from the boat. Fortunately, a second vessel was present in the area, and its crew intercepted them on a jet ski. DeJesus was pulled onto a speedboat where, upon trying to apply pressure to her wound, she realized that she no longer had her right arm. Her training as an ICU nurse kicked in, and she gave those on board the instructions they needed to save her life. The men, both of whom had military experience, followed the steps as instructed before bringing her to a dock, where they were met by an ambulance. DeJesus was flown to an emergency room by helicopter and woke up on life support. The 32-year-old woman survived her ordeal and gradually adapted to her life as an amputee. She was fitted with a myoelectric-controlled prosthetic arm, which moved by using signals from her shoulder muscles. In what she described as an act of getting closure, DeJesus returned to Lake Travis with her friends on the 1-year anniversary of the accident. Today's topic was requested by Viper. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. KRISTINA. In 2014, Air Canada passenger KRISTINA was on a domestic flight from Calgary to Grand Prairie. During takeoff, the Q400 twin-engine turboprop blew a tire and was unable to turn back or continue to its destination. As a result, it crash-landed in Edmonton, about 200 miles north from where it had departed. When the aircraft hit the ground, the landing gear collapsed on the right side. Consequently, one of its propellers came loose and sliced through the cabin. KURYLO was struck by the blade in the head after it breached a wall. Amazingly, she survived the blow. A friend who was on the same flight noted that she sustained a huge head lump, along with multiple bruises and scratches. KURYLO was treated for a concussion as one of 4 passengers to be hospitalized at the University of Alberta Hospital in the crash's aftermath. Number 1. Ivan Andres Lopez Londoño. In April of 2018, a helicopter crashed in Colombia's southwestern Cauca district following technical difficulties. It was carrying valuable equipment, and roughly a week later, a second helicopter was dispatched to the area on a recovery mission. It had made 4 successful visits, but the 5th went horrifically wrong. Maintenance manager Ivan Andres Lopez Londoño was on the ground, directing the aircraft's approach. A video captured during the recovery mission showed the moment that the helicopter suddenly started to overturn. As it approached the side, Londonio was in the path of its propeller and was brutally mowed down. He sustained devastating injuries and was pronounced dead at the scene. The pilot also sustained bruising and an unspecified wrist injury. An investigation was launched into the incident to determine if weather conditions, equipment malfunctioning, or a piloting error had been at play in the incident. Thanks for watching. Would you rather swim between the propellers of a powerboat or jump into a swimming pool with an alligator for 10 minutes? Let us know in the comments section below.